Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining this webinar about sustainability reporting. As we all agree, sustainability reporting has become an increasingly important part of corporate strategy. While the regulation demands transparency and data reliability, the supply is lacking. It's a challenge for the industry. And today with Oriane and Olivier, we will share insights and walk through the twists and turns of sustainability reporting. I think the webinar will be divided in two parts. First, we will have an overview of sustainability reporting, ESG, regulation, and so on. And then we will analyze the pain point, which is data collection and comprehension. So I am Ines, and I am a marketing manager at Lingua Custodia. I will be today's moderator. I will also like to introduce our speakers, starting with Oriane. Oriane, you're a director at PwC Strategy and Business. You provide leadership and advice on sustainable finance and ESG strategy for clients in the financial domain. Prior to joining PwC, you co-founded Label R, a company which has created an ESG and ethical due diligence and risk assessment tool for fund managers and their underlying companies. So you're the ESG experts today, and we thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ines.
Moving on to Olivier. Olivier, you are the founder of Lingua Custodia, which has celebrated its 10th birthday, birthday this year. So Lingua Custodia builds specialized machine translation engines to make financial translation faster and better, thanks to the technology of machine learning. You also have over 18 years of professional experience in the asset management industry. You first worked for JP Morgan and then AXA Investment Managers, where you held various executive positions involving corporate management, lead management, and also client servicing.
Thank you, Ines. Hello, everyone.
So you're the tech expert today.
And data expert.
And data expert, right? So I see that we are, I think everybody joined. So I think we can move on and start. But right before we start, I would like to let everyone know that if they have a question, they can ask it using the box Q&A down their screen, and we will hold a Q&A session at the end of the debate and answer all of them. So to start the debate, I have a first question for you, Oriane. What are sustainability risks, and what are the expected impacts of the sustainability reporting in the industry?
Thank you, Ines. So it's always a big question, and it seems always really easy, and actually it's not easy. But I think that before beginning to answer what are exactly sustainability risks, is interesting to make one step back and to come to why we talk a lot about the sustainability risk now, and when it really became a trend in the market for financial sector and for all the corporation. So the EU in 2018 has defined a set of new regulation, and the objective of this regulation, and I think it's really important to understand that, because we usually forget the main purpose of the European Union. It was to reorient the capital flow to sustainable investment, and to really bring clarity in the market, and to classify the funds, to give them have an idea of the proportion of green, not green within the financial sector, and also to require them to manage their sustainability risk. So, and then that has put a lot of pressure to the financial sectors and to the financial market participants that facing this complex challenge and issue, because when we talk they were forced to identify something they were not used to assess and to manage. Up to their sustainability risk was usually considered as a low risk exposure and was not really taken into consideration. It has changed a little bit with the climate change, so we begin to saw some companies identifying and integrating the climate risk within their process. It was mainly companies and a bit less the financial sectors, and so another the regulation is there. So when we talk about sustainability risk, there is unfortunately no one definition for sustainability risk. Even the regulation approach them a bit differently depending on the objective, if you want to be sustainable or if you want to have as the taxonomy promulgates more at this stage an environmental objective. So sustainability within the taxonomy are still a bit with an environmental objective, and the SFDR is a more broader objective. So as you mentioned also, so they were facing complex challenge in terms of identifying, managing sustainability risk, but also in terms of data, and we will come to this question a bit later with Olivier. So they were not really relying on a set of data, and we will talk about that a bit later. So, and when I think it's interesting to understand that one approach to assess the sustainability risk is usually the materiality. So so to really identify the issue that can significantly impact a company positively and negatively, because a lot of actors they like only taking the positive impact. And also what is important to see is that the European Union is talking about the double materiality. What are the or an event can impact your operation, your organization, your assets, your product, but also you as an organization, you can have an impact on the planet and people. And I think it's really important now to consider this, and also the assessment of these double materialities should be also taken separately. So and to have that in mind, and also when we talk about assessing sustainability risk, it's important to have to take the concern of your stakeholders. So that's an important point, because I always say when it's important for you stakeholders, it can become important for you. I like this example of I like this example, and if my colleague were here, they will laugh because I always give the same example. But why detergent company they put a beautiful smell in their in all the product? It's not because it's good, it's because the women who were using the detergent product, they were thinking that they had a bad impact on their health because of the strange smell. And it was absolutely not true. So all the studies have proven that this product were not affecting the health of the people using this product, but then the selling of the product has reduced, and so the company has to find another way of selling better their product, and it's why now you have a lavender, flowers smell in this product, is to attract one of the stakeholders and to make the stakeholders buying their product, and so if it's, and it can become a risk. So it's a simple example, but there is yes, many examples in this way. So if it's important for your stakeholders, it can become a risk for you, even if it's not a direct risk for your company, but it can affect your financial return, and then so it can become a risk. So you have to assess the real risk in terms of likelihood and impact. So that is also important to understand, because we have seen that with the pandemic, the COVID, and also the flooding that happened some months ago in our region, that they were both low probability likelihood events, but with a huge impact. And this also is important to really assess, yes, the likelihood and the real impact of an event and the concern of your stakeholder. And why am I talking about the materiality? Because materiality, it will be a key point of all your sustainability strategic planning process. So it will be integrated in all your processes, from your policies, the implementation in all your processes, to the reporting. And because the first question was, yes, what is the importance of reporting? So it's the objective is really to bring transparency, to bring data, to bring comparability within industry and sectors. And it's why the materiality is one of the good tools to identify the real risk, impact, concern of your stakeholders regarding your different sectors. So because all the companies and financial actors won't be touched in the same way. So it's not the same if you are an asset manager in Luxembourg or a mining company in Africa. So all the sector, the companies and organizations won't be affected in the same way, depending on the industry, the sector, the geography, and also what is for corporation. No, the supply chain is also a huge point to take into consideration. And all this issue will be integrated in terms of transparency in the reporting, and yes, and that's why it's really important to identify the most relevant issue to integrate in your reporting.
Thank you. And you mentioned regulation and taxonomy. According to you, what are the new regulation taxonomy to be expected this year for sustainability or sustainability reporting?
So we have the SFDR that everybody knows, and we have the taxonomy that has been that is taking place now. So it's already in place, and the European Union is working on the reporting directive. So it's a revision on the non-financial reporting directive that will become the corporate sustainability reporting directive. And that will require a company, that will extend also the scope of application. That's really important to see that more and more companies will be covered by this reporting requirement. And also what is on track is the due diligence directive that will be linked also to this reporting directive. So because the reporting is the last point of your process, and the European Union has made a lot of emphasis in terms of reporting, and but before being able to report, you have process to put in place, and that will be defined in the new due diligence directive from the EU. And corporation will be required, large corporation, in the first set of application, large corporation will be required to report on the environmental and human rights issues.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ines. No?
So Olivier, you've heard Oriane, according to what she said, how can fintech company help the industry take up these new goals and these new challenges?
Okay, so to start with this, I'd like to start by explaining what is a fintech, in fact.
Sure.
In fact, the definition I would take, usually people are saying, well, okay, fintech brings high technology to a financial sector. Okay, you can take this as a broad definition. And here, the idea would be, okay, how can fintech help with this notion of sustainability reporting? How can we really measure materiality as Oriane described it? to do this, and that's what the skills that fintechs usually have, you have three key skills that you need, three expertise that you need to have in your team. The first one is that you need to understand the financial sector, what are its needs, why do we need to do this sustainability reporting, what is expected from it, and that's exactly what Oriane has been describing. You know, the reporting is the last part of a chain. So you need to have a financial expertise. The second skill you need to have when you are a fintech, the second one is you need to have what would be broadly classified as an IT expertise. So that means being able to do some development, developing some tools, which is something that has been existing for years, but you need to have that skill. There's a third one, which is key. It's being able to use machine learning and to propose machine learning solutions to the sector. Why is this? It's because, in fact, while in the past, simple IT tools could help sort out simple problems, now we can see and we could hear from Oriane's speech that those kind of topics are very complex, and it's not black or white. It's very often gray, but you want to know what kind of gray it is. And for that, this is where the notion of using a deep learning, machine learning expertise, or what people talk about AI, but basically this is using algorithm based on statistics and therefore on a lot of data to try to identify some aspects. So that's what a fintech should have as expertise to do this. Now, when we look at the different the topics that were mentioned here, there is a problem. The thing is, to do machine learning, you need a lot of data. What is a negative impact? What is a positive impact? How do you define this? What are the rules are there rules that have been specified to characterize this? And then after that, how can you develop models that are going to be able to predict or anticipate this evaluation? This is the big topic. I will come back more specifically in the data domain, but in fact there are many applications and there is a lot of projects going on today in the fintech universe related to all this sustainability reporting, including developing, for example, anti-greenwashing tool. Okay, that's you have also a kind of greenwashing effect also that has appeared in the past years. How do you detect this? You know, how can you detect that? And that all comes back to the quality of reporting, to some type of information that can be either quantitative or qualitative, which are quite tough to analyze. So a lot of investment houses started to develop manually and to collect data and to try to handle this data manually with all the difficulties you can therefore face in terms of resources. Another question is, how do we automate this? And what are the different stages to automate this process? I will come back to this afterwards.
Thank you, Olivier. So we see there is a lot of demand, but there are still some holes to fill. Oriane, can you tell us why is that precious ESG data so hard to collect? Why is it a challenge?
Because most of the time the information doesn't exist. Still doesn't exist. So and it's even the case because we talk a lot. We have a lot of rating agencies that provide some kind of rating on ESG for large companies, but we have still some problem in terms of reliability of this data, because as we know, the data that they analyze are most of them public data created by the companies themselves and coming from the sustainability reporting from the companies who up to now we see that sustainability reporting are always the beautiful face of a company. What is not bad, but what is interesting now in the regulation is that in the reporting regulation is that it will be required to not only report on your positive impact, but also on your negative impact, and to have a more information on and real information. So we talk a lot about the fact that the information in the reporting should be reliable, comparable, and that we can be verified. So that is important, and that should be also a requirement for the EU Commission to come with more clear information on what you are really impacting, because the objective is not to do marketing, but is to really provide information on the real impact of a company. So that's one thing. So when we have data, it's quite difficult to rely on this data, and also when we talk about the private market, so we see that the data still should be created, and so we are really at the first phase of the process. We begin to see companies slowly building up their data, and in terms of material risk. And we are far away of the collection and the assessment of data, and I think we will discuss a bit that later with Olivier, and the understanding of data. So we are just at the really beginning of creating data and having an idea of which kind of data each company should disclose. And we have a really still a long process to go, but I think it's great because we see the evolution. No, I think that no company discuss the fact that they have to disclose the information in terms of environmental footprint, in terms of diversity, in terms of human rights, of social issues. So it's no commonly agreed that a company has to disclose that. No, the first challenge is really how we have to process. And as Olivier mentioned, there is data that that should be calculated, quantified, and you have qualitative data. And we are at this stage now of building up this data, and it's why we will need to rely on different tools depending on the objective that you want to reach. If you want to build up the data, if you want to collect the data, if you want to understand the data, if you want to score the data, so they will have different tools for the different processes.
All right. And so, Olivier, how can technology help at this stage?
So the first thing that you need to do when you don't have data, okay, well, you need to try to extract the data. That's the first thing to do. So basically, what the type of technology you're going to use is going to be to collect sustainability reporting, the various information on annual reports, then doing distinctions between listed company, non-listed companies who will follow different type of standards, of course, and then create a tool which is going to go into the various reports and look for specific information and try to put this into tables. And then you start to collect data. This process, because of the way the reports are unstructured today, it goes in all directions. The terms are used sometimes to mean different things. The format is very different. So it's very unstructured information still, even if it starts to be with the effort of the EU regulation, it starts to come into a way of harmonization. But until now, a lot of this data has been really almost handpicked in the report. So that means that you have people who are going through those various type of reports, and they start to put a table next to it and fill in this data. So that's the basic. And then when you start to do this, kind of extraction, so also initially you talk a lot about quantitative data, numbers. How many people in your company are coming to work by car? What is the carbon footprint of such and such? What is your ratio of male, female in the board of a company? Those type of things are quantitative, what I call really quantitative data.
That's a point,
and so that you can therefore go and pick and collect and put that in your table, and then you start to accumulate information. When you start to accumulate enough information, you can then start to develop tools who are going to automatically scan the documents and then try to identify the information you're looking for and fill in automatically the case. But at this stage, you're still just automating a kind of data extraction process. That's the first stage, to start to collect your data and your various indicators. And with that data, you can then do a kind of overall rating of what you're analyzing. This is the first level. And here I'm just talking about numbers. So Lingua Custodia, as some of you may know, we are specialized in natural language processing. So our topic for us is more linguistic. And so we are specialized in translation, in specialized translation, which is one of the toughest topics to apply AI when you don't have one single solution to a problem, which is when you want to translate a sentence. And when so we are not ESG experts, but because we are NLP experts, we get consulted on a regular basis by people in the industry. And for example, we started to look at those setting up comparison tools purely based on the lexical aspect, just to compare various annual reports and see which one are talking more about environmental topics, which one are talking more about governance topics. Knowing that even just to do this is complicated, because what are the kind of terms and expression you try to find out to develop your model? So we used, you almost have to go back to a fairly rule-based system where you say, well, if I find those terms, it's not really machine learning, and so it's rule-based kind of software, then you're going to measure and to count the number of occurrences, and then you're going to classify your tool. But then when if you want to go further than this, and the future of the industry is very much starting to do, we talk a lot about sentiment analysis when you want to know if overall, the global sentiment, for example, for a stock is positive when you collect a lot of linguistic data on the web. Well, this is the next area of application is on all those sustainability aspects and the materiality, the impact of that various companies can have using all the text and the text that they are producing and all the text that are written about them. You can start to develop models on this. But to develop those models, you need to have a lot of data. So that comes back to my initial point, which is to say I need to have done all those tables with numbers, know that this company, yes, is rated that much, and this is all the kind of literature that they have produced. And therefore, with a lot of this information, you can develop statistical models that are going to assume, therefore, and make recommendation on that basis, knowing that, again, this is a statistical prediction, which will very much depend on the type of information and the quality of the data you have collected initially. And that comes back to two aspects of the data. First, you need to have a data which is coherent and gathered in a certain way, so apply standards for the data. Second, you need to have this data. After that, needs to be of good quality. You can't create or generate like sometimes we're always in AI. We're always talking about training material to train a model. If the material you're using are let's imagine annual reports of companies, and on the other side you have a kind of overall view of information and data that may be extracted, not only numbers but also some linguistic information that you want to extract and identify from those reports. If the data you built initially was built with information that is not in the reports, which very often today is the case because you can't find all the information you're looking at the same place, then you are at risk that you're going to generate a statistical model on things that make no sense, and therefore you increase your risk of error. Hence the importance of not only having a lot of data, but having a lot of data of quality. So that's the key aspect. But that's, we are going in that direction progressively, as you start to see also some companies that are trying to gather a lot of data. Ideally, you would want to have a kind of marketplace initiatives at some stage where we agree on what should be the training content and the training materials that should be used to develop those models, because you need also after that to also understand, and that's another issue with AI, and is the explicability of the process, and that becomes even more complicated.
And what I think what is interesting to see is the great connection that it will be between the regulation and all this fintech tool, because now the regulation will be also more clear about the methodology to use, because as Olivier mentioned, so in terms of quantification of data, so that's even for simple things as the diversity in a company. We see that the company are using different methodology to assess the diversity depending on what is the best way to define it for them. So, and what is interesting now in the interconnection of this tool and the regulation is that the regulation will also provide methodology on how to assess even what seems to be simple, but how you will calculate your carbon footprint exactly, how you will define your diversity. So all the quantitative for the quantitative data, and this tool will help you calculate this data, and in terms of processes, because when we talk about more qualitative data that we require more for social aspect, for example, that is more built on processes. So this tool will be really important. Also, I think they will be important because one thing that we haven't mentioned is that these both directives that I have mentioned, so in terms of reporting and due diligence, they will require an audit. So the reporting will be audited and the due diligence will be audited. So what is important in these tools that they will allow with by analyzing all the linguistics, so also to to help auditor to go quicker in assessing the methodology applied.
That's tricky because when you want to audit how a model built with deep learning has produced some consequence, some interpretation of some recommendation, to do reverse engineering on this is extremely complicated and not also 100% accurate either. That's one of the big challenge actually of the deep learning models today. It's very much the complexity is such to understand the consequence, and it can be indeed sometimes just a slight difference in interpretation of an original data, which is going to create this mismatch.
Exactly. No, there is a lot of challenge now to face.
So you both mentioned the regulation and things like this. Is there any current initiative that are helping regulate the data and that will help converge to data structuration? Like I know Lingua Custodia used the GRI reports. Is there any other initiative?
There is plenty initiatives. So for listed market, you have all the rating agencies that are really used for financial market participant investing in listed. We begin to have some actors also working in private markets. So we have also benchmarks that are and for sure we have all these reporting standards and framework that the voluntary, that are more voluntary, like you mentioned the GRI. Just to give you an example, the GRI is part of the discussion with the European Union on the reporting directive. So we know that the reporting directive will be linked to international reporting standard as the GRI, as the TCFD. So TCFD is the reporting initiative framework for climate risk. It will be based on all the international standards in terms of reporting and take them into consideration, because the objective is to bring harmonization also in the market. So, and to take the best of each of them and to come with a more harmonized standard in terms of reporting, they will do the same for the due diligence. So they will base their due diligence on current risk assessment, because what is a due diligence is an assessment of risk. So they will be based on the international recognized standards in terms of risk assessment, as the UN guiding principle of human rights, the OECD guiding principle for multinational enterprise, also the IFC performance standards, the ILO convention and declaration, so, and which are already part of the European regulation and considered as the minimum safeguards in the taxonomy. So for the moment, the taxonomy, we only consider the environmental objective in terms of climate change and climate adaptation. But when you want to be taxonomy aligned, it's important to get in mind that you also have to respect some minimum safeguards in terms of social and human rights issue, and they are aligned for sure to international standards, because as I always say, ESG sustainability is not something new, and it's something that it's not new. Some companies were already doing it. We have already plenty of standards and framework that were already existing. It's just that now we put a name of on to bring all this dimension into a large dimension. But yes, for a long time, companies were already assessing and putting in place process in terms of environment, anti-corruption, social issue. The ILO laws and convention are there for a long period of time. So the human rights guiding principle there, it's just that they were not applied commonly by corporation and organization. And now it's why the main objective of the European Union is to bring transparency and harmonization between them, and to really have clear processes on how to assess these different dimensions.
All right, well, very clear. I think we're gonna move on to the Q&A session before you both can conclude.
No, I had some more stuff to say on the technology.
Oh, right. Go ahead.
Because also I wanted to add an element, so you can see, so you understand that there's an evolution in what the technology are bringing to this. First, there's a notion of automating the creation of the data set. By doing data extraction, automating data extraction. The data extraction process may require some AI tools to do that, but that's fairly kind of we go and we try to find the right information to automate the process. Then after that, the second level of technology that is going to arrive, but is hard at the moment to come on board, because precisely it's still very vague. There's still a lot of things that are ambiguous, and ambiguity is too high to really create the proper machine learning models, whereby after that, we've just, in the ideal world, you put all the literature that has been produced by a company in a tool, and that extracts, and that gives you automatically a kind of ranking with qualitative evaluation. All this done automatically. This is what we would like to have. The problem with this is that those tools, in fact, because a bit like language, where the language evolves all the time, therefore you need to retrain your models all the time. The models you're going to create based on AI for this kind of interpretation of sustainability items or materiality elements are going to change constantly with the time. Oriane was mentioning that ESG is not new. 25 years ago, you already had some funds that were managed based on some specific criteria that related to this. And the thing is that also the way to assess and is also changing. The regulation is there, but I think the regulation is going to evolve. Recently in France, you know, you had a big scandal on homes, a company called Orpea in France, which was highly ESG, well ESG rated, and I had a huge scandal on it. This was not picked up even by the kind of manual reviews that were done. So that means that the framework is evolving. So therefore, all the models that we create after that will have also to evolve on a regular basis on that. But in any cases, the tools that are going to be created will always remain tools to help making decisions. But that's the proper human people who will have to use those tools to validate or not some ratings, some assessments on the sustainability reporting as well. So it's an important element to add on that aspect, and that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Olivier. We have a question, actually, that kind of makes sense with what you're saying. Will the war in Ukraine impact the regulation to?
Actually, the war in Ukraine won't impact directly the regulation, because the regulation is not putting threshold for the moment in any case. So you are still able to do whatever you want to do. The regulation, she asks is for transparency. So, and when you are sustainable or when you are ESG, to disclose which part of your investment are ESG and sustainable. You are still allowed to invest in fossil fuel, in weapon, in everything. So the European Union doesn't say you don't have to. Yes, the European Union exclude mainly fossil fuel, but when we have seen with the taxonomy, they allow nuclear and gas as activities enabling the transition. So the European Union is not putting any threshold. It's not saying you don't have to invest in this kind of industry and sector. You just have to be transparent of what you do in terms of ESG and sustainability. And they are and with the taxonomy, they are setting up technical criteria to prove that you have a substantial contribution to an environmental objective. So that's what it's, and if you want to be classified as a sustainable investment, but there is different way of classifying a company than the taxonomy. What is interesting in this period of time is that we have seen that a lot of asset managers have excluded weapons and from the universe of investment, while wanted to see that they were sustainable or ESG, and so that's the question. No, and a bit it's more an ethical question. So and we have seen that a lot of European investors have divested from the weapon industry. So that's a question. No, so if yes, but again, the European Union doesn't say that you have to exclude weapon, and also we have to see also if geopolitically is the best idea to exclude weapon from our universe of investment if you want to prove that we are sustainable. So it's an ethical question that each of one has to answer by himself, because the European Union is not excluding this specific activity, and also is the same question in terms of nuclear and gas. We are really conscious. The European Union took a political decision some weeks ago, and they are in consciousness that we cannot avoid nuclear and gas at this stage to be able to participate and push company and activities towards the transition, and to push capital, to reorient capital into sustainable investment. Again, the main objective of the European Union, and we have to keep that in mind, is to reorient capital into sustainable investment. So and it doesn't, so it's why she's aware that we will need the nuclear and the gas to allow this transition. So, but we have seen that some countries have and we see that mainly with Germany. So they've divested into the nuclear and going towards that. Now they have a huge dependency with Russia, which lower our geopolitical position, the geopolitical positioning of Europe. So I think it won't necessarily affect the regulation itself because it's still not there, but it should, I think, make people, investor and asset manager more conscious on what they really want to do and what the objective they want to attain. And I think that most of actors, they've excluded things and they've done things just to prove that they were doing things, but we have to be more conscious of what path we take and conscious of the implication of the path that we are taking.
All right. Thank you, Oriane. We have another question. What are the best pathway to market for startups that can provide new data set for ESG ranking? Is it via rating agencies, fund managers, or to company directly?
I may take this one, probably more with a kind of entrepreneur hat on this. The key thing, I think, is that you show that you have an expertise in ESG rating on the market. After that, the stage where we are today, as you have seen from the discussions, is that each house will have very kind of specific way to assess and to do this ESG rating. So for me, the best way to do this, and actually this is also something we are looking at, we have an expertise, and our clients on that particular topic, they have data which we don't know really how to structure and how to use, and they have a use case. So the key way is to develop a nice product and to make it progressively market leader is to start like this with a few companies directly to look at the particular way they use ESG ratings, and then to leverage on your expertise. Plus, they may have data on top of that, on top of the data you have already yourself. But to mix their use case, their data, mix with your data and your expertise to create a nice, if you're at the startup level, so at the beginning, this is a way to enter the market. You start to have a solution, therefore, that you have established for one or several institutions, which after that you can put on the marketplace. The more you have companies who are interested in this, the more you will have interested after that, and that's the way you can create a market standard. That's how I would do it. So that's rather than just pushing straight. It depends on your level of advancement or how far you are in the startup journey.
Thank you very much, Olivier, for answering, and thank you for your questions, everyone. I think we have no more questions. If you do have any after the webinar, you can, of course, you're free to contact whether Oriane or Olivier. They're both active on LinkedIn, and I'm sure they will be very happy to answer all of your questions. Olivier, Oriane, would you like to conclude this webinar?
Yes, with
ladies first.
The Women's Day is already over.
Yeah, it's every day.
No, I think that what is interesting in this period of time is that we are really facing a momentum, and that's, I think it's important to understand, and that we will really need everyone working on this topic. So startups, tools, large companies, and investors, regulation, and I think that will be, it's why I think it will be really a collaboration between all the synergy that we need for sure, tool and startup working in this specific subject, because we have seen that there is challenge at every level, from and not only in terms of data, but also in terms of automation of processes, and to facilitate the work of all the organizations. So there is data at each level of challenges, sorry, at each level of the processes, from the automation to the data. And also the next challenge will be to understand this data, and I think that will be yes, we are facing great challenges that are really great for everyone.
Olivier, what do you have to answer?
It's hard to say anything after what Oriane says. Well, or what I would say is that indeed, to progress in this world, we need to put together people who are experts in ESG, and to manage to find and identify what I would call the use case when you want to create a tool. After that, to agree on what we're trying to measure exactly and how to measure it. And then after that, you put together with the expertise of people who will therefore understand that need and develop it and run it and be able to handle the data, because it comes back to a data issue. But there's a lot of nice. There was a question on the startup earlier, and there's a nice ground to create new products and new business on those activities for the greater good, which is nice. So that's good. So thank you to all of you, so to a few hundreds of you who were with us today, and looking forward to having further discussions on those kind of interesting topics.